thanks everybody for joining us today. I was really excited about this topic. So I want, just even to make it fun, I've tried to use Christmas carols as most of my titles, so hopefully you'll recognize those. We called it Advent-ageous Eating because Advent is really about a time to wait and prepare for the big event. So I just wanted to tell you right now, give yourself a pat on the back for attending this session, for committing to prepare for the holidays. Already, you are taking an important step towards anti-inflammatory eating and health. So today I'm going to cover the following. We're going to talk about how to deal with food indulgences over the holidays, how to control appetite, how to beat stress during the holidays. I'll be talking about that right at the end of the session with a really neat activity that you can do that takes a couple minutes that can really help you to settle really strong emotions. We're also going to talk about staying gut healthy, making better food choices, and how the gut microbiome is influenced by the foods that we eat. Finally, throughout the presentation, we've interspersed recipes. You don't have to copy these down, as we will be sending the recipes out to anyone who's registered. So before we start, I would like you to get out a pen and paper, or maybe open a note section on your phone, because while I'm doing this presentation, my challenge to you is to pick 1 to 3 things that you are going to try from this presentation over the holidays. So most people, if you're one of those people who looks at it and thinks, I'm going to try everything, you probably won't do anything. We know that people are more successful with goals when they pick 1 to 3. So I want you to try to pick just 1 to 3 things that you're going to try. So Santa Claus is coming to town, but what is he bringing? So your gut and your brain work very closely together. Gut pain is influenced by how you deal with strong emotions. You have nerves that connect your brain to your gut. And when you feel stressed, when you feel super excited, this can all influence and cause pain in your gut because of those nerve connections. The pain that you feel is real and it's not made up. Your inflammation, for people who experience inflammation in their gut, this can often be affected by the type of gut bacteria that you have in your gut. Now, our research area that we do at the University of Calgary is all focused on how to make the foods that you eat the best, so that we're really building the helpful bacteria. And all of these things help to impact your mental health. They can impact your whole body pain. And also they greatly impact risk of disease by making sure that you have the helpful bacteria and less of the unhelpful bacteria. As I mentioned, your gut bacteria is influenced by what you eat. We can see even in a 24-hour period of time from people who've switched from a regular diet to a high sugar diet that they change their gut microbiome over that 24-hour period of time. So I'm going to talk a lot today about how to get food and anti-inflammatory food components into your body early so that you are controlling and making sure that you're feeding those helpful bacteria every day, even though later in the day you may not be feeding those helpful bacteria. Also, stress is very interesting, but even feelings of stress, and the holidays can be stressful. You have to buy presents, you've got to do a lot of preparation. You might be running around to different parties and you still have to do all of your regular things. And stress can actually make your intestinal wall more susceptible to toxins and proteins because it starts to get a little bit leaky. It can cause the cells to kind of get a little more open, a little bit leaky. And this allows toxins or large proteins to go into the system. And this also can increase your risk of inflammation. So I wanted to talk a little bit about terms because sometimes what I hear might not be what you hear. So the first thing I want you to think about and maybe write down on your page is what is a healthy and happy holiday look like for you? So that's going to be different no matter who you talk to. So for me, it means being with the people I care about and who care about me. It means feeling a sense of peace, of fulfillment when I look at the Christmas tree with the Christmas lights. And hear some of those cheesy Christmas songs. It is about, what really boils down to for me is tradition. And all those that sugar cookie that my auntie makes and having the exact same breakfast that we have every single year for Christmas, right down to the syrup. And social psychologists actually tell us that the key to a connected family group is creating and keeping traditions year after year. So this creates traditions, and the practice of these traditions regularly creates bonds between groups of people that are very difficult to break. So these traditions and some things that make your Christmas healthy and happy are things that also strengthen your bonds with the people around you. Some of the other things I'm going to kind of throw around, and I just wanted to explain them very quickly, but I'm going to be talking about phytochemicals. Those are just things that are in plants that are biologically active. That means they work in our body to help improve our health. I'm going to talk about those, but I wanted to mention them because they're things that float around in our system. They damage cells, and they can even damage the genetic material in the body. So they are not good things. We don't want them. So when I'm talking about phytochemicals, antioxidants, polyphenols, or flavonoids, you probably have heard all of those terms before. Really, what the purpose for those is around free radicals is they're like garbage trucks. They go around, they pick up the free radicals, and they get rid of them for us so that we don't have to worry about them as much. And polyphenols and flavonoids is a type of polyphenol, which is a type of phytochemical. And all of these things work together to be antioxidants. They act as those garbage trucks. They help with inflammation, and they also can help with weight control over the holidays. This is an anti-inflammatory food pyramid that we first published in 2021 targeted towards patients or people with inflammatory bowel disease. Now, the research that has gone into this is really around how to create an how to decrease inflammation in the gut and how to decrease inflammation in the whole system. So I think this is very appropriate for people who want to practice anti-inflammatory eating. Now, this is very busy, and you don't want to focus on the whole thing. You will get this slide, but this is not the time to change your behavior. This is the time to focus on maybe one thing, right? As I mentioned. So I want you to look at that very bottom line of that pyramid. This is where I would suggest, or you set one goal around some of getting these foods in. These are the foods, they're rich in all those things I just talked about. They get into the body, they clean up the garbage. So even when you're regularly eating these things, even earlier in the day, you're setting your body up for success and potentially could help control or prevent some inflammation that may be caused by other things that you're eating. So on the bottom, you'll see on the far left there, we talk about blue, red, and purple fruit. These are antioxidants and anti-inflammatory. Typically with fruits and vegetables, the more color, you really don't have to know a whole lot. You just need to know the more color that it has, probably the more anti-inflammatory or the more of those polyphenols that it has in it. So here I'm going to show you. People always tell me when they look at this is way too much food. I can never eat that. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to have to hold it a bit in front of my face. So this is what half a cup of berries looks like. There you go. That's one serving right there. So it's not a whole heck of a lot. I'm also going to show you when I talk about green leafy vegetables, we talk about 1 to 2 servings a day. And this would equal about 1 cup raw. So I'm ripping up 2 pieces. You'll see these aren't great big pieces, but 2 pieces of romaine lettuce here. I put them in, and that's pretty much 1 cup. So that's 1 serving right there in just 2 lettuce leaves. Also, if you think about adding, I know it is a little bit of a push, but adding about half a cup of spinach to a smoothie, I find if you have lots of fruit in it, I find it doesn't really taste. It just looks green. So even just starting, if you are scared you're not going to like it, starting even with a serving of spinach, which frozen spinach, this is only how much it is. I'm going to make sure that's in the camera. It's not a whole heck of a lot. So right there, if you just ate those 3 things, you're already ahead of the game, and you're almost meeting all of your requirements from that priority 1 behaviors. The other things that are in those priority 1 behaviors are choosing orange or purple vegetables, things like beets, those sweet potatoes for that turkey dinner. Make sure you pick those, even if they're covered in pecans. Hey, nuts are good, and butter. Squash, carrots, orange peppers, and red cabbage. Some of these things, if you do have irritable bowel syndrome, may make your symptoms worse. You may also, if that happens, putting them in a smoothie, starting to break down the fiber in the vegetables is again, and in the fruit is again a good way to start the digestive process for yourself and have access to all of those wonderful nutrients. So I've included a few salad dressing recipes here for you. The top one is excellent for patients or people who have lots of digestive pain and suffer from irritable bowel syndrome because it has no garlic or onions, which can exacerbate symptoms for people, both with IBS and with inflammatory bowel disease or IBD. The Caesar salad dressing is better than bottled. Bottled dressings have tons of additives in them and not really healthy oils. This Caesar salad dressing recipe is delicious, and it also is full of healthier choices in terms of ingredients. I've also included a garlic oil recipe. This is for people who cannot tolerate garlic or onion and cannot even tolerate garlic or onion powder, because that also can cause pain in the digestive tract for some people. But it's really a pain to eat Caesar salad and not have garlic. So this is a way that you can add garlic to your food without adding pain. So let's now rock around the breakfast tree. So if you want to eat healthy or eat well, eat healthy early. You have the patience, you have some time, you have more motivation, and you get it over with. So you don't have to think about it all day. So one really easy way to do this is to prepare smoothie bags on the weekend. We'll give you a recipe for that. Peeling or using even canned fruit. Sometimes if you do experience symptoms with drinking a smoothie in terms of digestive pain, can help lower or make a difference for that. Or just make it super simple. So maybe you're an oatmeal person, add some berries into that oatmeal to make it a little bit healthier. Make sure you're going to eat around lunch, eat your two romaine lettuce leaves. Also, variety is key. So this is where breakfast becomes really important, because breakfast, if people who don't eat breakfast typically have less variety in their diets. So what we recommend is this might be another goal you want to do, is the 30 plant food challenge. We did this back in September as part of LyfeMD, so you might have seen it before. So people who eat 30 or more plant foods a week have more health promoting, a tremendously amount more health promoting, gut microbiome compared to people who only eat 10 or more. And when you think of 30 plant foods, this includes things like fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, beans, and grains. Now you might think there is no way. 30 is a whole lot, and you can only count things once. But for example, if you ate, instead of just strawberries, if you ate mixed berries, that's 5 different types of plant foods versus 1. Or if you ate mixed nuts instead of 1 nut, that's 5 different kinds of nuts. So right there, you have 10 different plant foods. So it's not as hard to get to 30 as you may think. Also, you may want to give your gut a break. So to help maintain weight, you can use intermittent fasting, and maybe this is something you just do over the holidays. The kind that we have been using in one of our research studies is encouraging people to fast. So this means you don't eat anything or drink anything besides water, so anything that has calories, for 12 hours. So that would be from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. the next morning. Now, this takes the blood that might go to your digestive tract while you're digesting food, and actually helps that move to other parts of your body that need healing. So giving that we are designed to give our digestive tracts a rest. Now, when you start with 12 hours, you can also, our final goal with that is 16 hours. That may or may not be possible for you over Christmas, but when you do a 16-hour fast and then you're only eating in that smaller food window, you can see similar results to following a low-calorie diet. This is our smoothie recipe that I mentioned. I'm not going to talk about it in a lot of detail, but you can play around with the ingredients. And basically, this helps you incorporate most of that bottom line of the food pyramid all in one go. So come on, ring those bells, because it's time for lunch. So I had a friend who gave me this advice once, and it was wonderful advice. And she told me, Lorian, you have to be nice to yourself. She said, buy cut up, I always felt guilty when I was buying those already cut up fruit and vegetables in the grocery store. Buy things that are super simple. You don't want to spend all day, especially if you're making a big dinner, you don't want to spend all day making lunch. Buy homemade soups that you can get from different stores or, people around you. Make a big pot of soup on the weekend and freeze it, and then just bring it out. Frozen fruit and vegetables are fine to use. They're nutritious. Try to buy ones that don't have added sugar or salt. But you can also rinse, particularly if something is canned or frozen with a sauce or salt, you can always rinse it to get some of that off. Another secret is to cook rice on the weekend. So we're going to give you 2 rice recipes. And this is because rice, especially rice that's been cooked and cooled and then reheated, is high in resistant starch. Resistant starch is exactly what it sounds like. It's resistant to digestion. So it makes it all the way. Oh, sorry, I don't know what just happened there. Let me just do this again. Sorry about that. You can see the slide again, Charlie? I can't see you, but let me know. I'll assume you can see the slides again if you...
We can. We're back to the beginning slide.
Okay, yeah, I'll just fast forward through here. Sorry, I have no idea what happened. Of course, that never happened on any of my practices. Okay, so around lunchtime. So cooking, cooling the rice, and then reheating increases the resistant starch content. Resistant starch feeds the helpful bacteria in your gut because it's not digested further up in the intestine. So having a big rice dish in the fridge that you can kind of eat for 4 or 5 days is a great way to feed that gut microbiome and that healthy bacteria, and it's super easy, and you can feel good about what you're doing for yourself. Also, don't skip lunch if you don't want to overeat. So if you're starving when you go to eat your big meal or the meal with all the Christmas baking and all of those things, if you're really starving, typically what people do is they'll eat fast because they're really hungry and they don't take time to enjoy their food. So try not to get yourself to a total state where you're going to eat your arm off because you're so hungry. And I wanted to include a few snack tips as well. So snack on things like nuts instead of candy. So, put a dish of nuts out instead of jujubes, or even some of the dietitians in the audience might roll their eyes at me, but even the dried fruit that's covered in the dark chocolate, where the chocolate hasn't been really processed, are a better choice than just straight candy. You're getting some phytochemicals, but you still feel like you can have a treat. Also, maybe those weeks that you're going to be eating a little bit more baking and food than usual, try not to buy your normal treats. So particularly if you drink things like pop or you eat chips and have some of those higher fat, lower nutrient foods that you eat pretty regularly during the week, I'm not saying go forever, but try to go without them for a couple of weeks to make room for some of those other delicious things that you want to eat. Also, adding in a walk or creating a tradition around adding in a walk after meals can also be a very effective way to decrease insulin levels, decrease blood sugar levels, and even 10 minutes after a meal will have a positive effect. Well, we've included here a few lunch recipes for you. One is a green rice recipe. When I first made this, I told my kids it was incredible Hulk rice. Totally did not work. So they would not eat a bite of it. So I wouldn't make white rice and I would just put it in front of them every time. And I got them to start taking a teaspoon at a time. And now they love it and actually even request it. Also, this mushroom fried rice was contributed by one of our employees, Vidya. And it looks like a delicious recipe and has some low FODMAP modifications at the bottom. So for example, using garlic oil and then using other types of vegetables other than mushrooms, because button mushrooms in particular can exacerbate digestive pain for people with irritable bowel syndrome. So Rudolph, won't you drive my sleigh tonight to dinner? I thought I was very clever thinking of these things. So really what our big meals and that time with family surround is about, try to make it homemade. Really, if you can change one thing about switching from something processed to something homemade that comes right from the plant or the animal, this can make a big difference for you, because you're eliminating a lot of additives, you're eliminating a lot of salt and a lot of sugar from the food that you're eating. To do this, though, you typically need to cook ahead and you need to get help. So don't, if maybe your goal is, I'm going to ask that the sister-in-law or the brother-in-law to bring a dish too, and I'm going to give them the recipe and ask them to make it. And also for mashed potatoes, you want to get starchy. So they're the same thing as rice. When you cook them ahead of time, even a day before, you let them cool, you're developing more resistant starch that feeds that good bacteria. And then when you reheat them, and typically what my family does, they just put them in a crock pot, and then everybody can get them as they go through for their dinner. And this creates, again, a product that's nice and high in resistant starch. Also, when you're looking at the food in front of you, go for color. Like I mentioned before, color has more anti-inflammatory nutrients and phytochemicals in it. So things like cranberry sauce, and we've included a recipe, family secret recipe for you. And also sweet potatoes are another good choice to offer and are often eaten over the holiday season. The next thing that I'm going to talk about may fail you. So just get prepared for that. So mindful eating is where you concentrate on the pleasure the food brings you. So if you're eating that Christmas cookie that your grandma made and her grandma made, and you just want to enjoy that, I really encourage you to not allow thoughts of guilt to come into the picture. Choose not to think those things. Choose to feel the pleasure of the food. If you take time to slow down, enjoy the food that you're eating, smell the food, taste the food, you're actually going to eat less of your meal and get full faster, because you're just simply slowing down the amount of time you eat, and you're increasing, when you stop and really focus on the pleasure, you're increasing those feel-good hormones that get released when we eat, and you're getting them to release even quicker. So the trick I use for this is I smell it. So I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to smell my plate. Or even when you're bringing the food to your mouth, you cannot look you can do it pretty and not look too weird to smell what you're eating. You're going to put it in your mouth. You're going to hold it there for a moment. And you're just going to think about, these are all the reasons why I like this food. You're going to sit, you're going to feel that pleasure before you chew the food and swallow it. The other thing you can do, and this is just something that I do, this isn't evidence-based, but my sisters always make fun of me for, is when the food is in your mouth, if you breathe out through your nose, it actually can help you taste the flavor more. So you have the food, please do not choke, do not breathe in, because then you're going to choke. But when you breathe out and the food's in your mouth, it enhances flavor. At least it does for me. So that's another one that you can try to, again, just help you to slow down and really enjoy the foods that you're eating. And also, you want to make sure you drink. So what is that about? So first, I'm going to talk about our cranberry sauce. So the cranberry sauce, it still has a lot of sugar in it, but we've added orange juice, and you add a peeled pear right at the end. This is the secret ingredient. It adds just a depth of flavor that is so delicious. And you don't even know it's there. Like, you can't tell that the pear is in there, especially try to use a soft pear. So baby, it's cold outside. Let me get you a drink. You want to stay hydrated. So if you're like me and you haven't peed all day because you've been sitting at your desk, then might be a bit of a sign. The color of your pee, if it's deep yellow, that means you're not drinking enough. So you need to start drinking more fluids. Tea or coffee is a great way to cut a craving. It's also a great way after a big meal to make sure that stomach is full. So you then might eat a little bit less dessert or Christmas baking because you are too full, especially if you're not adding a lot of cream or sugar. Try to use, for these types of things, if it makes a big difference for you, have your cream, But if it doesn't bother you, then have your milk. I've included my favorite kind of tea there. It's called Vanilla Nut Cream Decaf by Stash. This is something I often drink in the evenings when I'm having a sweet craving. Also, another thing you can do is order a new flavor from David's or Tivana. You can just do it online. Find the yummiest flavor you think you can find, like creme brulee, and order it as a treat just for yourself. I want to just briefly touch on sweeteners because I have listed them in some of my recipes. So erythritol is one sweetener that binds to typically some of the food that you eat, and you just poop it out. It doesn't get absorbed by the gut. It doesn't get digested by the gut. It's not harming the gut microbiome, is what we believe at this time. But erythritol, because it does bind to certain things in the food, it can make patients who have a lot of digestive pain or people with IBS, it can make your symptoms worse. So this would be something I would not recommend if you really battle with a lot of digestive pain. Stevia is another option. We're not sure of the effects of stevia yet in the gut microbiome, but whatever you are picking, if you do use sweeteners, those are the two that I would suggest. And you want to try to pick one that does not have additives in it. So a lot of them have powder or things that have been added to them to make them go further, but pick the ones that do not have the additives, if you can find those. Typically, you can in almost every single grocery store. Another trick to help you so that you don't overeat and to help control appetite is to drink a glass of water before meals that has 1 to 2 tablespoons of psyllium fiber in it. Now, if you have never done this before, Christmas dinner is not the time to try. So you want to do this ahead of time. It's best if you do it over a few days to build up your tolerance. So you don't want to just start putting 2 tablespoons in a cup and drink it down, because you're definitely going to have some gastrointestinal effects from that typically. So you want to start slowly, even with a teaspoon, and then you can slowly build up to where you're having more of the 1 to 2 tablespoons of psyllium fiber. And there's lots of research that shows this does help control appetite. Also, if you do not do this, if you have any swallowing concerns or have difficulty swallowing, this is not something that you should do, because the psyllium fiber thickens. That's what it does in your gut as well. And it creates almost like a gel. So that can be more difficult to swallow potentially. And also what I do is I order it online to avoid additives. If you buy it at the drugstore, this is something like a product like Metamucil is a psyllium fiber, but it again has a lot of stuff added to it. And it's way cheaper if you just order it online. And I just order psyllium husk that's been ground. And I usually look for one that has a picture that I can see. We have a few drink recipes for you. The first one is this is one of my special recipes that I make for my kids a lot, and it's anti-inflammatory hot chocolate. What makes it anti-inflammatory is when you are using unprocessed cocoa. So I'm just going to grab a drink. So when you use unprocessed cocoa, it still has all those phytochemicals are still present in the cocoa. When you use Dutch processed cocoa or the cocoa that you would find in the baking aisle at your grocery store, that cocoa, it isn't going to taste any different, but it's been so processed that most of the phytochemicals have been removed. So I can find unprocessed cocoa in the organic food aisle, or sometimes I might have to go to a special, more of an organic type store to be able to find that. Also, this is another secret family recipe. So we do have a non-alcoholic mulled wine. We call it Linda's Hot Punch because it's my auntie's recipe. And this is just so delicious. You can put it in a you heat it up. You can put it in a crock pot. It can sit there all night. It just gets better the more it sits. You may want to remove the whole spices if you are letting it sit for a long time. And it contains many anti-inflammatory ingredients like orange juice, fresh lemon juice, and then spices are full of phytochemicals and anti-inflammatory components as well. So those are also included in this recipe. And now I want to talk just very briefly about alcohol. So you don't want to be the person who all you want for Christmas is your 2 front teeth. So safe drinking guidelines. So this means that this is drinking that does not harm any organs in your body, or does not is considered safe by the Canadian government. Is 3 standard drinks on special occasions for women and 4 standard drinks on special occasions for men. And that does include potentially not drinking the day before or not drinking the day after, but taking a break from alcohol on days, especially around when you're drinking a little bit more. You can also boil it, so you get the taste of the alcohol, but you really reduce the alcohol content and the calories that come from that alcohol. So I've included a chart that tells you if you boil it for this long, this is how much alcohol is left. And then you can have, it's only 40%, that means you can have a few more glasses. I just did want to mention that no alcohol is safe for anyone who has any type of liver disease, or anyone who is pregnant. Also, alcohol reacts with many, many, many medications. So if you are concerned about this, then phone your pharmacist. If that's the easiest thing to do, then reading those tiny little labels. I mean, who can read those anyways? And ask them if you have to be concerned about that. Or also you can spritz it. So if you want to bring some Sprite or Diet Sprite or fizzy water and add it to your drink to make it go further, that is another way that you can have a few more drinks, but it stretches out that 3 or 4 drink limit. So this is a very funny song if you've never heard it before, called Grandma's Killer Fruitcake. And I wanted to give you a few baking tips. I didn't want to go overboard here because I think seasonal baking is so central to our traditions. And I think so many people enjoy it that I didn't want to really change some of the really special things you do. So I've given a few tips here, like adding vinegar to turkey bones, and then cooking the turkey bones for 24 hours, of covering them with water, not vinegar. Just a couple tablespoons of vinegar works. And that will increase the collagen and gives you a great broth, a great bone broth. Substituting evaporated milk in recipes. So I ask my family for this recipe, and I substitute evaporated milk for the cream. I am very scared now that they all know this, and no one has ever noticed, and they all ask me to make it the year after. So especially for sauces that have cheese in them, people typically won't notice if you're using cream or if you're using full fat evaporated milk. Don't use this in drinks, it doesn't work. Another tip that I learned from a chef was to use healthy oils at the beginning for cooking. So maybe you're frying your garlic or your onion to get it ready for a dish. Use oil, and then like canola or olive oil, and then finish with butter. So if you would typically fry things all in butter and then that's it, you can actually get more flavor from the butter, more health from the oil, and just by adding the butter at the end for a bit of flavor. And you typically don't need to use as much too, because you're not trying to prevent food from sticking. Another recommendation is mix it up. So you can use things like almond flour to replace about 1/4 of the white flour. Coconut flour is another one that has lots of fiber in it, just to add some nutrients. And almond flour actually does add a nice flavor and adds a bit of moistness. So if you do have a baked product that sometimes does seem a little dry or gets dried out, replacing a little bit of the white flour with almond flour is a great choice. So I'm just being conscious of the time. So I am going to finish in the next few minutes here. So we did have a video for you, but you actually can't view it. So, or hear what they're saying. So I'm going to demonstrate for you what alternate nostril breathing looks like. And I know my picture might be very small. So this is when I was talking about the stress reduction tip that gets you to release all of these hormones that help you to feel better and can really help manage strong emotions, or when you're in a negative situation, you feel, oh man, I just need to calm down. Like when I'm trying to get my kids to put their socks on in the morning, a little alternate nostril breathing, let me tell you, It keeps kids alive sometimes. So the way you do it, so I've been taught there's a few different ways you can do alternate nostril breathing. This is something you can look up online to see different ways to do it. If you're a LyfeMD member, or if you have the app, this is all in the app as well. So to do alternate nostril breathing, all you do is you cover what, I'm going to sound a little funny. You cover one nostril, you breathe in for a count of 4, you hold it, and then you switch to the other nostril, cover the other nostril. You're going to breathe out for a count of 4 and hold it for 4 seconds. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, go to the other side. So you're always breathing out on the other nostril. Breathe out for up to, now you can add to 8 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and then you're going to breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds. So even if you just remember every action is 4 seconds, and you breathe in, you do everything for 4. Breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. And when you breathe, after you breathe in to breathe out, you're going to switch the side of the nose. So I hope that made sense to you. And if it didn't, you can just look this up online. It's really easy. This is one of the most effective breath techniques we have to combat stress. And I know it seems like a little bit different, but going into the bathroom for a few minutes and just sitting down and doing this will help calm your whole system down. And this is my last slide. So what are some other tips just to feel joy to the world and also for yourself? So it's a time of year where you're probably good to a lot of people. You need to also take time to be good to yourself. This, you want to take time to feel pleasure. When you eat that cookie, enjoy the cookie. Don't, if you have guilt about eating high fat and high sugar, don't allow that thought in. Your thoughts are not facts, and you can choose what you think. So enjoy the pleasurable food. Know that you eat this once a year and that this is a special time. Fill yourself up with all those healthy things in the beginning of the day, so you know that you've got those anti-inflammatory components on board, and then just enjoy yourself. Another great thing to do is to practice gratitude. When we are kind to others and say thank you, we feel good about that too. We don't only make other people feel good, but we feel good. So saying thank you to that person who bought you all those presents, giving your mom or your dad or your grandma or grandpa a hug because of that beautiful meal they just made, and saying thank you, I appreciate you, goes a long way, not just for them, but for you too. Even I think just when you're shopping, and it's Christmas Eve and you're like my husband, and you're buying all of my stocking stuffers and you're a little stressed out, again, just saying thank you to people, being kind goes a long way, not just for them, but for you. Also, don't go into difficult situations without being prepared. Christmas can be very difficult. People lose family members. They're reminded of the loss of those family members at this time of year. And feeling that sadness is okay. Make time for yourself to feel that grief and be prepared. So if you're going into a situation that you feel like might be a negative situation for you, it can be very helpful to get an index card before you go into that situation. Find an inspirational quote, write down the things that you like about yourself, write down, I am lovable, I am worthwhile, and read that card before you go in. I know it seems silly, but it does actually work. When you come out of that negative situation, do the same thing. Another thing that I do is I text one of my very good friends and I say, I need some encouragement. Encourage me. And then they'll text me quotes, and they, are really positive, and they let me know things that they like about me. And all of those things make me feel better. So those are just a few tips and tricks. Remember, I want you to, the challenge is to pick 1 to 3 of those things. And now we're going to move into some questions. And Charlie, I know we are at 4:44. So if people do want to go, they can. But if you want to stick around for a few more minutes and listen to the questions, then you can do that as well.
Thank you, Lorian. Some really good tips there. I enjoyed listening to those, and I think I'm going to try Auntie Linda's non-alcoholic mulled recipe first. So our first question that's been sent in was, what are your recommendations when indulging during the holidays, especially when there are so many delicious food dishes that may not be the healthiest choice for IBD or IBS?
Yeah, thanks for this question. I think it's a great question. I think focusing on the bottom row of that pyramid earlier in the day can help with that. I think being aware of foods that do hurt you, especially even patients with IBD, which is inflammatory bowel disease, can have IBS as well. So if you do know that, for example, milk might really bother you, then do try to stay away from those things. Now, if you can also ask, so if you have things that I think it's really important, if you have foods that you can't eat or that kind of make it so that that very special meal you can't have it, you can always ask people to make it for you, considering your dietary restrictions as well. So, or you can make it yourself and bring it along with you and just let them know, I can't really have that, so I'm going to make my own little one and bring it with me. I think also taking time to enjoy your food, like I talked about a lot, I think probably a little too much, will help you to slow down your eating, especially maybe for those foods that you know might bother you. Also, might seem silly, but chewing well to get digestion started in the mouth and really to help start breaking down that food can also make a difference. And again, I did mention around the psyllium fiber as well, especially for constipation or for related IBS, or even for people who also experience diarrhea, that also can help. So I hope I answered that question well.
Thank you. The next question is, I have IBD and rheumatoid arthritis. Since being diagnosed in August of 2021, I've lost over 30 pounds and muscle mass. The dietary constraints leave me concerned, as does the inability to overexert myself in training to gain weight and muscle. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I really appreciated this question because I think many people with IBD suffer from nutrient deficiencies. They've often cut a lot of foods out of their diets because they think that they may cause increased symptoms. And this can actually lead to protein energy malnutrition as well. So as I read this question, I think it seems a little bit complex. So right now we actually have free dietitian consults for anyone with a digestive health concern. And it would be great for you to sign up for one of those and talk to our dietitian. There's no cost involved at all. The Canadian Digestive Health Foundation has covered that cost for you. And to sign up, you can just go directly to our website and a pop-up appears. Just push on that pop-up and you can have an appointment to talk to someone about that. Also, I just wanted to mention in the app, we have a gentle movement program in the inflammatory arthritis program, and this would be excellent for you to start with. This is just about mobilizing joints, getting things moving so you don't hurt yourself. And then as that feels a little easier for you, you can then progress to our beginner program for physical activity, focusing on the strength activities, and they are all graded in the app. So for example, we don't just tell you to do a squat. The first exercise that we show you in the video is to actually sit down in a chair, get up from a chair, and to do that 12 times instead of just, telling you to do a squat or something that might be painful for you. So I think that would be a nice place to start. And I think too, as I read this, I thought you should be really proud of yourself for caring about your health in this way, for coming to this session, and for wanting to feel better.
This is a very pertinent question, I guess, with how to deal with cold and flu during the winter season. And I don't know, it seems that there's a lot around at the moment. So do you have any advice for this question?
Yeah, this one was hard for me because I'm a dietitian with a PhD. I'm not a doctor. So I'm not a medical doctor. So I do want to say around that. So I'm going to actually refer this to our GI in our team to ask them also, and we can, respond to this one in the PDF that follows. But the first thing I thought of is making sure you're getting fluids, making sure you're getting rest. that can be really important, particularly if you have COVID. Some research has shown that people who rest when they have COVID are less likely to get long COVID than if they try to keep going through COVID. So that's fluids and rest. I think also something that I do when I have a cold or flu is I do try to drink anti-inflammatory type teas. So I typically use a chai tea that has cinnamon and all those spices in it. I add a little pinch of turmeric to that, and I squeeze in fresh lemon juice, which also adds a lot of vitamin C to what you're drinking. If you're not very hungry, it's still important to try to eat small amounts of food and try to eat those smaller more frequently so that you aren't getting, so that you're not losing a lot of muscle and feeling really lethargic when you're sick. But I will, those are my quick things, but we're going to also ask our GI to comment on that question.
Great, thank you. Are there any foods that would be great to eat to increase food value quickly, even if we know that we will be eating lots of sweets that night? So that person sounds very prepared and they know what lies ahead. So well done for that. And says, I'm thinking about what to put in a smoothie for breakfast as an example.
So I think that bottom line of the food pyramid, use our smoothie recipe. It pretty much takes care of that whole bottom line, except for a couple servings of vegetables. So, you know, foods like berries, again, super nutrient rich. Things like apples, peel the apple if you think the skin bothers you. That's a rich source of pectin. It forms a gel in the gut that helps you know, increases and can help transit time or the amount of time it takes food and poop to flow through your system. Bananas are another great source, especially green bananas. They're higher in resistant starch. To add that to your smoothie as well, are all things that you can do to increase food value quickly.
Great, thank you. If you're the one preparing the food, should you make everyone's favorites and try to avoid the temptation to eat, or prepare only healthy food?
So I'm going to say no. I think that you should eat the food that's special to you, and that's a tradition for you. But I think you should take your time when you're eating it. So eating smaller amounts of your favorite foods is, you're going to enjoy that more than preparing whole separate meals for yourself. And also, you know, ask the people around you to be considerate. So maybe you substitute one healthier dish for something that before was really loaded with a lot of fat and calories. Maybe you add a green salad with one of our salad dressing recipes, and you use the Caesar salad recipe because, you know, everyone in your family likes that. So, you know, creating a new tradition around a few things that you can feel really good about eating is important. But I think you should eat your favorites too. And I think just take the time to enjoy them. And this is, you know, this comes around usually just once a year.
And are foods that are high in acids something that we should avoid? I love sauerkraut, but I sure have discomfort if I eat it.
Yeah, so this question, I think if you have any type of reflux, so if you have, you know, you get a lot of acid reflux from your stomach, that can, you know, eating any food that maybe causes a little bit more reflux may bother you. You could try taking a Tums to see if that helps at all, to settle down the reflux if that's what the problem is. The other thing is cabbage is something that can cause a lot of digestive upset. So if you are having a lot of cramping and pain, it's probably not necessarily from the acid, because our stomachs are super acidic, right? And as soon as that acid goes to goes kind of into our intestine, it just gets blasted with things that make it not so acidic. So that acid isn't going through our whole system and wrecking things. So it might be the cabbage itself. So, I mean, one thing you could maybe try is a smaller portion. I don't know if that's going to help, but I think if it was me and I really loved it, that's what I might try first. And I think that might be all of our questions.
That's all of the questions that we had posted ahead of time. If anybody has got any questions that have arisen during the presentation, please put them in the chat and we will be able to get the answers for you. We might not get them today because we'll have to get some questions to the GEI team as well. And also there is a poll that we would ask you, just two questions, I think, that's going to appear in the screen. You see there you are, there's a pop-up right now, and there's 3 shapes. If you could click on that and answer that, we'd appreciate that very much so we can learn how to cater to your needs best next time. Talking about next time as well, in January, we are hosting a session with Dr. Rahman again about IBS, which we just launched in the app. So that would be great if you could join us, find out. We'll wait for some information to land in your inbox. And these sessions are not exclusive to people within the app. If you know somebody else that would benefit from the sessions, you can share the link with them, or you can connect them to the app or social media avenues so that they can also be a part of the next session and future sessions. We'd love to hear any feedback that you have for us. Thank you for joining today. I can see we've got some questions coming in that we will get to next time. Sandra, thank you for that. We will get that back. We'll get that for next time. Lorian, do you have anything that you want to close with? I'm just going to take these questions and just make sure that they're saved.
I think just happy holidays.
Yeah.
To everyone, and just thank you for attending today. I hope you were able to get at least one tip that you can implement to help you have a more anti-inflammatory or advantageous holiday season. So thank you so much.